Alright, Joy, you gotta sit. Let's see if it stops here, if it slams on the brakes. Like, nope, it's just gonna roll right through like the stop sign didn't exist. Report stop sign bug. And it's gonna try to do a stupid navigation here for, again, no good reasons. We're gonna take over. Report navigation bug.
Hey y'all, remember when Trump picked a alcoholic sex pest TV liar to head up the most powerful military in the history of the world? Yeah, well weirdly, that don't seem to be working out too well so far. Pete Hegseth and his crack team of sycophantic idiots are in hot water after accidentally adding a journalist to a group chat about war plans. A group chat that I assume they renamed the Department of D's Nuts. I mean, does this surprise you? Would really anything surprise you? Like if you heard that Hegseth was texting some Middle Eastern general, we may have to invoke the Kesar Protocol. What's the Kesar Protocol? Kesar asses, get bombed, loser, America rules. And just a bunch of eagle emojis. Like, would that shock you? Would that really be any worse than this story? I mean, to be fair to Pete, he is a drunk, and every drunk in the modern era has accidentally texted the wrong person, something they regret later. It's just that most drunks are not the Secretary of Defense. So for them, that means sending a poorly lit picture of their sad penis to a now thriving ex-wife, which, while still a very bad idea, usually doesn't have grave implications for our national security. So kind of makes this whole thing a little different, if you ask me. Now, Pete might hear that and go, hey, that's not fair. I also send unsolicited dick pics when I'm drunk. Thank you very much. But listen, all jokes aside, apparently it technically wasn't Hegseth who added the journalist. It was National Security Advisor Mike Waltz, which, I'm sorry, doesn't really change anything for me. Right, if my son was on the traveling baseball team and I heard they let a monkey drive the bus, I'm not going to care whether it was the head coach or an assistant who gave him the keys. You're all coaches. You should all know it's a bad idea for a monkey to drive a bus. And truly, using a group chat for war plans is the monkey driving a bus of operational security. It's just in this case, the bus is America, all the coaches are monkeys, and the president didn't just give them the keys, he got all the monkeys drunk first. Things really do just keep getting worse and dumber around here, don't they? Reportedly, Trump is furious at Waltz over this. You're like, oh, okay, so Trump realizes the gravity of this mistake and he's resolved to fix it. No, of course not. No, that would be a good and appropriate thing. And good and appropriate things are illegal in this country. No, Trump is mad at Waltz for not jeopardizing the safety of the military. He's mad at him for having a journalist in his contacts at all, because that might imply that he's leaking information. You see, in Trump's circle, the only media members you're allowed to have in your phone are white nationalist podcasters who get paid by Russia to make dumb people mad. That's totally fine. Text those guys as much as you want. But journalists with annoying and disgusting habits like being objective and reporting the facts, strictly forbidden. Right? It is extremely telling that for Trump, the most egregious security screw-up in living memory, yes, MAGAs, even worse than Hillary's demon emails, is, quote, not a big deal. The idea of accountability is dismissed out of hand, and actions need not have consequences as long as you toe the line and kiss the ring. But even a hint of possible disloyalty, and may God have mercy on your soul. And they call us alarmists for crying tyranny. You know, one of the first things I thought when I saw this story, as I often do, is I wonder how the media is going to spin this one. Well, let's take a look.
All right, y'all, we're here on Ground News' website. They also have a mobile app and a Chrome extension. We're looking at the coverage of Trump officials accidentally adding journalists to signal chat on Yemen strikes. The coverage breakdown over here, a whole bunch of sources, almost 600, already pretty evenly distributed, more on the left than the right. That in itself is telling. And if you look down here and use Ground News to sort by bias of the outlets, you can see on the left, they're obviously pretty concerned. In fact, so concerning, social media goes ballistic over the Hegseth chat. U.S. government accidentally invites journalists to secret chat. Heavy data breakdown in Trump's cabinet. You can tell they're emphasizing how alarming this is. You can see on here on Ground News, before you ever click an article, you see all this extra insight. You can see the bias of the outlet, factuality rating, and even where the money comes from, the ownership group as well. But if you look instead at right-leaning outlets, they're keeping it mostly facts only, if you could call it that. They just note that Trump officials texted the plans to a group chat that included a journalist. Trump officials accidentally sent attack plans to reporters. They're trying to, it was just an accident, simple mistake. Anybody can do it. What are you going to do? But they're not using the language that points out how concerning and upsetting this is. And there's a reason for that. That's the extra insight you get from Ground News. That's why I like them. Been working with them for more than a year now. They add those extra layers of context and transparency. It's not all they do. They got plenty of other great features. One of my favorites is the blind spot feature here. This shows stories that are not being covered on either side of the political spectrum right now. So it gives you an opportunity to step outside of your own bubble and see what's going on down at the other end of the political spectrum. Something I think we could all stand to do a little more of.
So if you like the sound of that, scan that QR code or click the link in the description below to try Ground News today. You can get 40% off their highest tiered unlimited access Vantage plan. That's only $5 a month. Or you can check out the app and website for free. That's right, it's time. Push back on the bias and BS. Try Ground News today. All right, YouTube, and we're back. Yes, this story in particular, you know what it means. You know what time it is. It's time for that. The official refrain of American leftists everywhere in a post-Trump world. Our official slogan, imagine if a Democrat did that. Can you even? Actually, we don't even really need to imagine it. We already know. We've all got that one drunk uncle who hasn't stopped talking about emails in Benghazi for the last 10 goddamn years, in spite of everything that's happened in the meantime. We all know what would happen if a Democrat did this. It's like I'm tired of being gaslit by maniacs into thinking that the two are the same. Right? If a Democrat did this, Democrats would be the first people to say, that's not good and we should probably do something about that. You know why? Because we care about the actual implications of the way things are run in this country. If we put someone in charge in a democratic regime and they were a drunken buffoon, we might worry that that could imply that, you know, we could all get bombed or people could die and things would go badly. And as such, we prefer you find someone who isn't a drunken buffoon to do it. Now, I shouldn't speak for the entire left, but I generally think that's how we would act. But it's funny, that's what it takes. You have to somehow try to illustrate for these people how insane all this is, and it's like even that doesn't work. It always makes me think of, like, you know, that iconic scene in the 90s legal thriller A Time to Kill, based on the legendary John Grisham book, where Matthew McConaughey's a competent Southern lawyer character at the end gives an impassioned closing argument where he beseeches this jury made up entirely of white rural Mississippians to imagine the horrors subjected to this victim and then think, what if she were white? And in that moment, all these people go, oh man, those things are bad. Rape and assault are bad. Now that I've pictured it being done to a white person, I totally understand why you might not want that. Man, crazy. Really makes you think, huh? And it's like, it's insane that ever needed to be said, or that it was, useful in any context, but that's what we have to do with these people all the time, and yet it still doesn't work. We have to do some bizarro version of that. Anything that's bad in the world, we have to say to them, like, well, imagine it was like you that it happened to, and they're like, I can't, I won't, shut up. You're like, okay, sorry, apologize for that. Or anytime some bad things happen, and they're like, oh yeah, now you care. And it's like, okay, imagine what you would be saying if a Democrat did it, though. And they're like, but, well, it's different for reasons, because the Democrats are blood-drinking baby killers, and that makes it different, okay? It doesn't matter the objective facts of what has happened, it just matters the letter next to a person's name. That's what determines how I feel about it, and I'm not ashamed to admit that at all. That's just the world that we all live in, evidently, and we all know that nothing really is going to come of this, and even if it does, the only reason for it is because it's going to be for the perceived disloyalty on the part of Waltz, not for the incredible lapse in operational security. Trump's whole position on that is like, look, who cares? Okay, so they sent like top secret classified military information that could jeopardize the lives of countless soldiers and service members to, people in the press, but without even meaning to. But I mean, look, it all worked out fine. The right brown people died, the bombs went off without a hitch, everything's good, we're still kicking ass and taking names. I see no reason to make a big deal out of this whole thing, all right? And then get back to ruining the Western world. So yeah, it's a new, it does make you wonder. It begs the question, what can possibly happen that's dumber and worse than this? And fret not, we'll soon find out. Probably next week, if I'm guessing. That seems to be roughly the frequency with which these cataclysmically stupid things are happening in this country. Roughly once a week. I know, because I come in here and lose my mind talking about each week's new iteration of them. So I look forward to the next one. It is truly incredible. You almost kind of got to give it up to them, because at a certain point you're like, there's no way they can top this in terms of dumbass incompetence. It can't be done. And they're like, hold my beer. That's what they say. It's truly incredible. You think at some point they'll have to hit the wall, jump the shark, do something. They can't just keep leveling up in terms of idiocy, dangerous idiocy, can they? I don't know. Me thinks they likely can. We'll all soon find out. Listen, thank you guys for watching. I appreciate it. Put up here these other things again. Hey, it's a new special. You've been here with me for a long time. I'm shoving that old special in your face forever, but this is a brand new one called Trash Daddy that's out right now. If you haven't watched it, please do. If you have watched it, watch it again. It's fun. It's a good time. Also, you can subscribe to the channel, see all these videos and my podcasts and other things that I do. But perhaps the most important one for me, Eureka Rd I-275, has all my links to my tour dates for upcoming shows. I'm a stand-up comedian. That's what the special is about, And if I'm coming near you, you should come see me. If you like these, you'll like that. I get glowing reviews. People like it. It's fun. Either way, if you keep watching these silly things, I'll keep making them. And, I'll try to hang in there, see how it goes. If you like chicken. See you back.
accountability. They have to talk about changes. They have to admit failure or admit there's a problem, hold someone accountable, and then implement changes across the system to ensure it doesn't happen again. Because not just reporters are listening. It could be foreign assets listening. They thought it was Jeffrey Goldberg. What if it wasn't Jeffrey Goldberg?
Right.
Then we could have had a much bigger problem.
There was an op-ed by Sabrina Singh. She made the argument that Pete Hegseth, not Mike Walls, who made the biggest mistake in this signal chat. She writes, it was Hegseth who put the precise timing and sequencing of the entire operation into an unclassified text app. It was Hegseth who revealed the aircraft that would be used to conduct the strikes before the operation took place. It was Hegseth who moved classified information to a commercial text app that could have been intercepted by our adversaries. And it was Hegseth who put our brave service members, including the fighter pilots preparing to conduct the operation, in mortal danger. What happened in the Congress you covered that they absolutely conceded their oversight capacity?
Right. Well, in the past Congress, Mike Johnson became Speaker, and he owes his speakership to Donald Trump. Donald Trump tanked the candidacy of Tom Emmer with a tweet. And so Mike Johnson knows all too well who is responsible for him being Speaker and having his power. So the last thing in the world Speaker Johnson wants to do is launch an investigation into the Trump administration. And you saw his comments. You know, he maybe mildly criticized this, but he brushed it aside essentially and said, there's nothing to see here. What more can we investigate, essentially? Now, of course, he played Roger Wicker, and maybe the Senate will do something, but I cannot see this House controlled the way it is by the forces on the right investigating the Trump administration.
And when you say this House with the forces on the right, that means also Johnson with a caucus that is dominated by the forces on the right.
Yeah, I mean, this is like it started last Congress, where with such slim majorities, where they were down to one vote majority last cycle. So really any member can make themselves the deciding vote and put themselves in the middle of negotiations and matter and get attention. And so this group of far-right members got outsized power because the Republican conference couldn't function without them being on board. This is why Marjorie Taylor Greenes and Lauren Boebert have power. Every single member of that conference has power when you have a one-seat majority. And that's the conference that Johnson is in charge of. Although at this point, Trump is really keeping them together. I mean, Johnson's main move when he needs Republicans to get behind and vote for something is, well, you're not going to do that. You're going to have to tell the president yourself. That's kind of the move.
Amazing that he will spend his energy screaming at people on a cell phone in the cloakroom, but not actually taking his own defense secretary to task. Thank you so much, Paul Rykoff, for being with us. Annie Carden, Luke Broadwater, so good to see you in person. Their new book is called Madhouse, How Donald Trump, MAGA Mean Girls, a former used car salesman, a Florida Nepo baby, and a man with rats in his walls broke Congress. It is out now. You do not want to miss it. We're going to sneak in a quick break. We'll be right back.
Your record label is taking off, but so is your sound engineer. You need to hire.
Indeed.
Indeed you do. Our advanced matching helps find talented candidates so you can connect with them fast. Visit Indeed.com/hire.
Verizon and AT&T announced price hikes a total of 10 times in the past 2 years. Families can switch to T-Mobile and get all the benefits that their plans will save 20%. T-Mobile blows the competition away. Did you take your vitamin today?
That's my job.
Nature Made, the #1 pharmacist recommended vitamin and supplement brand.
Okay, everyone, our mission is to provide complete balanced nutrition for strength and energy.
Ensure with 27 vitamins and minerals, nutrients for immune health, and Ensure Complete with 30 grams of protein.
Life doesn't come with an owner's manual. Freedom is getting to write your own. So get 10% off a Jeep Wrangler, or get into a Jeep Grand Cherokee where freedom is on-road or off, where it's a front row seat to the city, or a second row seat, maybe even a third. Life doesn't come with an owner's manual, so get out there and write your own.
During the Jeep Celebration event, get 10% below MSRP for an average of $5,650 under MSRP on these 2024 Jeep Wrangler models. See your local Jeep brand dealer today.
Nothing is more important than family.
A family you're born into, a family you choose, or a family you make. I'm Padma Lakshmi. I came to this country when I was 4 years old with my mother. We came here because it was a land of opportunity. But for many, that's not the case.
Porque primero me separaron de mi mamá y de ahí de mi hermano.
Immigrant families are being separated. Black and brown families are torn apart by a broken legal system. LGBTQ people suffer discrimination in adoption and healthcare. The need to protect and defend the civil liberties we all hold dear is more urgent than ever because families belong together. You can help by joining the American Civil Liberties Union today.
Call or go online now and become an ACLU Guardian of Liberty. All it takes is just $19 a month, only 63 cents a day.
The ACLU has fought to allow LGBTQ couples to marry, for racial justice, to stop family separation. We can't do this work without you. Together, we can defend our democracy, ensure liberty and justice for all, and keep families strong.
So please, call the ACLU now, or go to myaclu.org. When you use your credit card, you'll receive this special member kit to show you're part of a movement to defend free speech, protect our civil liberties, and keep families together.
I hope you'll join me in supporting the ACLU today, because we, the people, means all of us.
Call or go online to myaclu.org to become a Guardian of Liberty today.
A surprise victory for Democrats in Pennsylvania last night, where they won a special election for a state Senate seat in an area Donald Trump won by 15 points last fall, a district that has not been won by a Democrat since 1979. Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro celebrated the narrow win, saying voters in the district had, quote, rejected a candidate who embraced the extremism and division coming out of D.C. in a district carried comfortably by Donald Trump just a few months ago. They chose a better way forward. And while the win doesn't impact control of the state Senate, another special election last night kept the state House in Democratic hands after being deadlocked for the last 2 months. Up next, a top Democrat on the Hill who pressed today's questioning of our intel leaders about the Signal scandal and their handling of those military plans. The next hour of Deadline White House starts right after this quick break.
When our numbers guy Frank goes on vacation,
Go off, Frank. Yes.
the deals on the most affordable German-engineered car brand in America
Perfect.
get even better.
It's good.
Just ask our intern.
Okay, and then you're gonna watch me, and you're gonna do this. Ready? We're gonna go 1, 2, 3. Come join me.
Hop in during Volkswagen Deal Days. Get a $2,500 customer bonus on a new 2025 Atlas during Volkswagen Deal Days.
David takes Prevagen for his brain, and this is his story.
Nice to meet you. My name is David. I've been a pharmacist for 44 years. When I have customers come in, I recommend Prevagen. Number one, because it's effective, does not require a prescription, and I've been taking it quite a while myself, and I love it when the customers come back in and tell me, David, that really worked so good for me. Makes my day.
Prevagen, for your brain.
Life, diabetes, there's no slowing down. Each day is a unique blend of people to see and things to do. That's why you choose Glucerna to help manage blood sugar response. Uniquely designed with Carb Steady. Glucerna, bring on the day.
You know what's smart? Enjoying a fresh gourmet meal at home that you didn't have to cook. Upgrade your plate with Factor. Chef crafted, dietitian approved, ready in 2 minutes. Eat smart with Factor.
For plant-based healthy blood pressure support, there's one brand at Walmart that stands above the rest. It's Super Beets. Discover why more cardiologists recommend Super Beets for heart health support than any other beet brand at superbeets.com.
Your shipping manager left to find themselves, leaving you lost. You need to hire.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. Sponsored jobs on Indeed are 2.5 times faster to first hire. Visit Indeed.com/hire.
Honey Love bras are the most comfortable bras I've ever worn. The best feeling is when you take off our bras. It's not true. Honey Love bras have no underwire, so there's never any digging into your skin. There is some boning on the sides, which make it super comfortable and supportive. I love the cleavage that it gives me. And one of my favorite parts, no back flap. Never. The back straps are so wide. I could work out, I could run, I could dance. It's fun, it's beautiful, it's supportive, and I will say it again and again and again and again.
Shop bras and more at honeylove.com.
Hi, I'm Jay Jackson. For almost 20 years, Abacus Life has been purchasing life insurance policies from seniors. And in just seconds, you can use the free calculator at abacuspays.com to learn what your policy might be worth.
For many of my clients, selling their life insurance to Abacus was right for them and their estate plan.
Don't sell or lapse your policy without going to abacuspays.com first. There are no fees and no obligations. Get the real value from your life insurance when you need it with Abacus.
President Trump's first 100 days. Watch,
I'm going to be here 5 days a week again.
read, and listen
Staying up half the night reading executive orders.
for this defining time in the second Trump presidency. Stay with MSNBC.
What we're looking to do is educate, explain, and empower.
It is completely outrageous to me. Completely outrageous to me that administration officials come before us today with impunity. No acceptance of responsibility. Excuse after excuse after excuse. But we send our men and women downrange to do incredibly difficult, incredibly dangerous things on our behalf. And yet, nobody is willing to come to us and say this was wrong. This was a breach of security and we won't do it again.
Hi again, everyone. It's 5 o'clock here in New York. I'm Alicia Menendez in for Nicole Wallace. A national security slip-up that could have resulted in a loss of American troops. And yet, no accountability. Today, more and more details emerging in the Signal chat scandal, where Atlantic reporter Jeffrey Goldberg was accidentally included on a group chat of U.S. intelligence and administration officials discussing plans to strike Houthis in Yemen. Despite repeated claims from these officials that war plans were not discussed or that no classified information was mentioned on the text thread, Goldberg today putting those defenses to bed, releasing the full group chat, which did include specific details, including the timing of attacks and the type of jets being used to carry out the mission. A long text sent by Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth outlining the exact timing of plans included these words: 14, 15 strike drones on target. This is when the first bombs will definitely drop. As Goldberg put it in his latest piece, quote, "If this text had been received by someone hostile to American interests, or someone merely indiscreet and with access to social media, the Houthis would have had time to prepare for what was meant to be a surprise attack on their strongholds. The consequences for American pilots could have been catastrophic." Today on the Hill, the House held its worldwide threats hearing following the Senate yesterday, where Intel Committee ranking member Jim Himes pushed back against the assertions that the information was not classified. Here he is with Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard.
Are you familiar with the ODNI's classification guidance?
I'm familiar.
I've actually got a copy right here. If I read you a part of that guidance, I wonder if you could tell me what the level of classification indicated is. I'm reading from your classification guidance, and the criteria is information providing indication or advance warning that the U.S. or its allies are preparing an attack. Do you recall what your own guidance would suggest that be classified?
I don't have the specifics in front of me, but it would point to what was shared would fall under the DoD's classification system, and the Secretary of Defense's and what is not.
You don't. I guess you don't have it, but information providing this is the ODNI guidance. Information providing indication or advance warning that the U.S. or its allies are preparing an attack should be classified as top secret. Do you disagree with that?
I don't disagree with that. I just point out that the DoD classification guidance is separate from the ODNI's classification guidance.
Do you think it would be materially different?
Ultimately, the Secretary of Defense holds the authority to classify or declassify.
said the information was not classified. And that is where we start this hour with Ranking Member of the House Intelligence Committee, Congressman Jim Himes of Connecticut. Congressman, what did you learn in today's hearing?
Well, obviously the facts are out, or at least we think the facts are out. We're going to make sure that we get all of the facts, but, we're getting all twisted around the axle, around whether this was legally classified, declassified, should it have been classified, is it a violation of the Espionage Act, is it a violation of the Records Retention Act? Look, don't lose sight of the main thing here, which is that this information was extremely sensitive and should have been classified, and certainly should not have been on a signal chat, and absolutely shouldn't have been on a signal chat to which a reporter was invited, right? We are just so lucky that Jeffrey Goldberg was the one who was invited, because if it had been some flame-throwing podcaster who very literally put it up on the internet the moment he got it, the mission either would have been struck 2 hours later, or the Russians or the Chinese might have given the information to the Houthis, who might have moved their anti-aircraft equipment around, and we would be looking at dead pilots or sunken United States naval vessels.
Congressman, how worried are you, given lack of accountability here, their lack of interest in accountability, that something like this could happen again?
Well, honestly, I think this is tomorrow's project, because we had ample opportunity today to talk to at least the DNI, the Director of National Intelligence, and the Director of CIA. I think the Secretary of Defense has a lot of explaining to do to the House Armed Services Committee, but I will tell you that the unfinished business here, this was a catastrophic mistake, and they happen from time to time. This one was particularly catastrophic. So what happens when anyone makes a mistake? They say they own it, they apologize, and then they say, we are going to learn from that mistake, and then they impose accountability. None of those latter steps have happened here. Yesterday, Mike Waltz is on Fox News and in the White House attacking Jeffrey Goldberg, calling him a loser. The Secretary of Defense is still not doing what he would require all of his people to do, which is to take responsibility and start the process of making sure that it never happens again. So until those basic steps, which we demand of 5-year-olds in this country when they misbehave, until those steps get taken, we're going to have a real problem.
So trust me, I have a 5-year-old, and I made the exact same comparison. We have that Fox interview that you referenced with Mike Waltz. Let's just play a little bit of it.
You got somebody else's number on someone else's contact, so of course I didn't see this loser in the group. It looked like someone else. Now, whether he did it deliberately or it happened in some other technical mean is something we're trying to figure out. Oh, but how did it end up in your phone? That's what we're trying to figure out.
Okay, but that's a pretty big problem. Was there someone else supposed to be on the chat that wasn't on the chat that you thought was?
So the person that I thought was on there was never on there. It was.
Who was that?
I think they're missing the forest for the trees here in that, yes, it is a problem that a reporter was added to the chat, but the real problem, as I understand it, Congressman, you'll correct me if I'm wrong, is that this type of chat and deliberation was happening on an unsecure platform, period. Even if he had never introduced Goldberg into the equation, that's almost the secondary piece of this. The primary piece is this is not how and where these types of deliberations are supposed to happen. Is that correct?
That's exactly right. That's why we spend so much money and so much energy around classified systems that allow these people to communicate without any risk that a reporter is going to randomly wind up on the system. It's why we have armed guards and members of the military guarding the Situation Room and police guarding our skiffs, because we take enormously seriously the fact that these deliberations, whether they should have been classified, whether they were pre-decisional, they simply cannot see the light of day. And lo and behold, with this signal chat, not only did they see the light of day, but this reporter was invited on. You're exactly right. Jeffrey Goldberg is an illustration of why the idea to set up this signal chat and to share that F-15s are launching now and Reaper drones are going with it, Jeffrey Goldberg is a perfect illustration of why you don't do this.
Congressman, you talked about what it would look like for there to be accountability here, what it would ordinarily look like that someone would that there would be an apology, and then there would be accountability to make sure that it did not happen again. We are not seeing any of that. Given that, do you believe that Pete Hegseth or Mike Waltz should resign?
It hurts my ears when you play that clip of Mike Waltz answering legitimate questions about how Jeffrey Goldberg gets on the Signal chat and he says a loser. He attacks Jeffrey Goldberg, which of course is what the Secretary of Defense has done over and over and over again, right? As though that were somehow relevant. To besmirch another person when you made a mistake that could have cost people their lives. I mean, you just feel that, don't you? So to answer your question, I think the Secretary of Defense has a lot to answer for. First, why he was putting fairly specific Defense Department, and we can get it all twisted up over whether it was plans or intentions or how specific it was. It had no business being there. But his response has been entirely inadequate. And if he can't do what he would demand of his soldiers, his Marines, his airmen, and his sailors, and if he can't say, I screwed up, I'm sorry, and here's how we're going to fix that problem, and leave Jeffrey Goldberg out of this, he needs to resign.
It is one thing to talk about Pete Hegseth and Mike Waltz. I don't need to remind you that they are all acting in the service of the President of the United States of America, the Commander-in-Chief, Donald Trump. What responsibility does he bear here?
Well, they report to the President of the United States, but both of them take oaths to the Constitution of the United States. And under this presidency, that's a really important distinction. So if your question is, do I expect that Donald Trump is going to look at this situation and say, clearly mistakes were committed and people should own those mistakes and we should learn from them and we should deliver accountability? Do any of those words sound like words that we're likely to hear from President Trump? I don't think so.
I appreciate the distinction. It is, in fact, very important. These are people who are supposed to work for us, who are supposed to uphold the Constitution, and I think there are big questions about whether or not they're up to that task. Congressman Jim Himes, thank you so much for joining us. Let's bring in managing editor of The Bulwark and MSNBC contributor Sam Stein. Sam, you've been added to any Signal chains lately? A great view of how this administration actually operates. Yeah, check it for me.
Just checking, nothing. Unfortunately, I've been trying to get Mike Waltz to add me to one, but has not happened, no.
I mean, when you talk about peeking behind the curtain and getting a sense of how it is that they are conducting business, right? There is the fact of the app that they are using, which is not sanctioned. There is the fact of who is in that chain and who is not. And now there is this fallout where no one seems to be taking accountability and understanding that it's not just about what has happened. It is about ensuring that it does not happen again.
Yeah, and I think it's helpful to understand that one of the chief rules of working for Donald Trump is that you just can't admit fault. You can never admit fault. And so when you're watching this happen and you're wondering, why don't they just say this was a monumental screw-up? It won't happen again. We're putting in procedures to make sure it doesn't happen again. We will never use Signal again. We're going to launch an investigation to make sure that, the damage wasn't more widespread. Stuff that a normal White House might do to contain damage. They're doing the exact opposite. They're coming up with conspiracies about how Jeffrey Goldberg may have ended up in someone else's contact information and then saying they're going to get Elon Musk, of all people, to investigate it. It's because there is only one fundamental rule when you work for Donald Trump, and that is you cannot admit fault.
So you have Representative Bacon of Nebraska saying, God, it is what it is. Be honest about what this is. You have Senator Wicker calling for an investigation. Do you think we're going to hear from more Republicans, and not in the way where they have concerns, but in the way where they actually have some appetite for actionable accountability?
Yeah, I mean, we might hear from Republicans, but I think what you're getting at is a step further. Now, let's just think about it from this perspective. Let's say in normal times a scandal like this happened. Of course, it's never happened like this, but let's just assume it did. What would we reasonably expect? For one, the DOJ would be looking into it. The FBI would be investigating it. The White House might, have some more accountability into it. The intel community would be looking at the severity of the leak and the damage. And then on the Hill, of course, you'd have multiple committees with jurisdiction over, various agencies trying to come up with some sort of investigation or hearing around what exactly transpired. In this case, I don't think anyone has any confidence that, for instance, Pam Bondi or Kash Patel are going to look into it. I can't imagine the idea that they would appoint a special prosecutor to look into it. I can't imagine that the intel community would police itself around it. There is a small possibility that maybe on the Hill there's a committee that is established or that wants to look into it and ask questions and sends off letters. But the fact that that's not a given gives you a sense of where we are politically.
You know, there was an interesting aspect that was exposed, dynamic, a break between the vice president and the president. One point in the text chain, VP Vance says, the strongest reason to do this is, as POTUS said, to send a message. But I am not sure the president is aware how inconsistent this is with his message on Europe right now. There's a further risk that we see a moderate to severe spike in oil prices. I wonder what you make of the daylight between the two.
Well, there's a few interesting nuggets in these texts. One is that, which is that J.D. Vance has a little bit of, let's put it this way, a disagreement philosophically with the rest of the crew over this action. The second was what happened after that, which is they invited Stephen Miller into the chat, or SN. Yeah. Could be someone. And he's the one who basically says, you know, POTUS wants this, let's do it. So Stephen Miller clearly plays an integral role in channeling what Trump wants and is essentially on par with the cabinet officials here. There's another of other little things here and there. One that sort of stuck out to me is the degree to which Hegseth seems almost like he's trying to prove himself in this chat. It's the incredible detail that he goes into, the all caps, the enthusiasm, the response. It gives you the sense of a defense secretary who is trying to not just sort of maybe get over like what we would call imposter syndrome, but just show that he belongs. And that is, to me, an indication that they've picked someone for this post who his critics would say just doesn't have the traditional qualifications for it. And then finally, and this is really weeds, but there is a moment there where the person who looks, the initials are Marco Rubio, invites another person with the initials of Marco Rubio to participate in the channel. And you have to wonder, was Marco Rubio, whoever that person was he on a different phone and he wanted to switch to a different phone? And was that a government phone versus a personal phone? Again, there's a number of different questions that arise from these texts. And in a normal circumstance, you would imagine that people who have jurisdiction over these people, over these cabinets, would want answers. I just don't know if we're in those types of times.
Especially given that this chat was set to expire, such that there would be no record of it. Sam Stein, you're sticking with me. We're expecting to hear from Donald Trump in the Oval Office, and if he makes any remarks about this story, we're going to bring them to you. But when we return, there's already a lawsuit against the Trump officials who took part in the Signal chat. And who is set to oversee it? Well, the same judge Donald Trump is calling a radical left lunatic as he fights to deport Venezuelan nationals under the Alien Enemies Act. That legal twist of fate is next. Also ahead, Donald Trump moving to make voting more difficult. How his latest executive order could disenfranchise millions of voters and why that's crucial to his plans. Voting rights attorney Mark Elias will join us. And Elon Musk and his chainsaw, they are driving Social Security close to total system collapse. That's the assessment of the former Social Security Administrator Martin O'Malley. Governor O'Malley will be our guest later in the hour. Deadline White House continues after a quick break. Stay with us.
Wow, looks like your hiring's making a lot of people happy.
ZipRecruiter's new tools and intro is a game changer. It saved me so many steps in the hiring process. Look, I just pick a time and it handles everything. From finding the right candidates to setting up interviews.
So, no more back and forth.
Right. I can just choose from this list and meet as soon as tomorrow. Oh, wow. Another dignified portrait of me.
Zip Intro. Post jobs today. Talk to qualified candidates tomorrow. Try it free. Only at ZipRecruiter.com/MSNBC.
Asthma. Does it have you missing out on what you love, with who you love? Get back to better breathing with Fasenra, an add-on treatment for eosinophilic asthma taken once every 8 weeks. Fasenra is not present breathing problems. Serious allergic reactions may occur. Get help for swelling of your face, mouth, tongue, or trouble breathing. Don't stop your asthma treatments without talking with your doctor. Tell your doctor if your asthma worsens or you have a parasitic infection, headache, and sore throat. Ask your doctor if Fasenra is right for you.
Artificial intelligence is vital to America's economic future. We must lead in developing AI, including open and closed source models. As the global leader in AI, America can strengthen small businesses, create new jobs, and spread our tech innovations across the globe. But if Washington ties the hands of America's innovators, China will gain a global economic advantage. America must lead. America must innovate. America must win. Our leaders must protect our competitive edge.
Did you know 80% of women are struggling with hair damage, just like I was? Pantene Miracle Rescue Deep Conditioner with melting Pro V pearls locks in moisture to repair 6 months of damage for resilient, healthy-looking hair. If you know it's Pantene.
I think I changed my mind about these glasses.
Yeah, it happens. That's why VisionWorks gives you 100 days to change your mind. It's simple. Anything else I can help you with?
Like what?
VisionWorks. See the difference.
You've put up with your old shower for too long. It's outdated, unsafe, and it's time to replace it. But why struggle with a lengthy shower remodel when Jacuzzi can do it in just one day? And there's no need to break a sweat or your budget. Right now, we're waiving all installation costs, plus offering 0 interest and 0 payments for up to 1 year. So you can finally convert your old bath to a safer, easy entry shower, complete with a custom seat, grab bars, and slip-resistant floor, installed in 1 day.
My overall experience with Jacuzzi has been wonderful. Everything was customized to the way I wanted it for the price that I wanted it.
I've had a great experience from start to finish.
Don't take matters into your own hands. Do it the smart way. Give Jacuzzi Bath Remodel a call.
Call or go online now to jacuzzibathremodel.com. We're waiving all installation costs, and there's no interest and no payments for up to 1 year. Go to jacuzzibathremodel.com or call 800-990-5365. That's 800-990-5365. Call now.
Stay up to date on the biggest issues of the day with the MSNBC Daily Newsletter. Each morning you'll get analysis by experts you trust, video highlights from your favorite shows, previews of our podcasts and documentaries, plus written perspectives from the newsmakers themselves. Sign up for MSNBC Daily at msnbc.com.
I think that my fellow colleagues need to step up and face up to this breakdown in security. It's not just a breach, it indicates a pattern and practice of carelessness and recklessness, a disdain for the safety of our troops, a priority of public credit and vanity over real military achievement.
Democratic Senator Richard Blumenthal on the recklessness of Donald Trump's cabinet members discussing battle plans in a group chat on the messaging app Signal. One group agrees with him, and they are taking action. Late yesterday, American Oversight, a nonpartisan watchdog group, filed suit against Trump cabinet members and the National Archives. American Oversight is seeking an emergency order, quote, to prevent the unlawful destruction of federal records and to compel defendants to fulfill their legal obligations to preserve and recover federal records created through unauthorized use of Signal for sensitive national security decision-making. The suit names Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth, Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard, CIA Director John Ratcliffe, Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent, Secretary of State Marco Rubio, as well as the National Archives as defendants. And in a twist of legal fate, the case has already been assigned to Judge James Boasberg, who's been threatened with impeachment by congressional Republicans for staying the Trump administration's attempts to deport Venezuelan nationals without due process. Joining our conversation, former U.S. Attorney and former Deputy Assistant Attorney General Harry Litman. Sam Stein is back with us. Harry, your reaction to this filing?
Well, look, it's only about, Alicia, the record-keeping parts of this. There's more than reason to think there's solid information that some of the people on there used a Signal and set it to expire, and that's a violation of the Public Records Act. This is the kind of suit that's been brought before. First, the archivist has to step up and do the archivist's job, and if they don't, private organizations like these that would normally receive the records that they claim are disappearing have a right to bring suit. It's happened before. I think it's fairly solid. But again, it's only to say, keep those records going forward. Don't use Signal. I just want to add 10 exclamation points on steroids to what Sam said last segment. This is an amazing breach. This is the crown jewels for military intelligence, always has been. It's Paul Revere, one if by land and two if by sea, knowing what the other side is going to do. In any other administration, I mean any other administration, Republican or Democrat, there would be a file already opened in the FBI that says 793F and has the name Pete Hegseth on it, because that's the crime he may very well have committed, as well as internal investigations within the Bureau and all kinds of activity in different committees on the Hill. And if that doesn't happen here, and in particular from my own standpoint as a former DOJ guy, if they don't look into it hard, it shows that one more really big body blow to the rule of law by Donald Trump. This is a huge kind of breach that would definitely result in serious investigation across the government in any other setting.
Sam, you got 10 exclamation points from Harry Littman, which have never been gifted before, so congratulations to you. The suit also mentions that the defendant's use of Signal strongly suggests that they have used Signal to communicate about matters that may otherwise have been discussed via email, thereby avoiding creating records responsive to American Oversight's FOIA requests for emails. I mean, you can imagine how Republicans' hair would be on fire if Democrats were not responding to FOIA requests. I wonder, Sam, about the questions you still have about sort of what predated this, what comes after this, and given the sort of dead end we find ourselves at, right, where there have not been asks for resignations from inside the administration, at least not as far as we know. No one is resigning of their own accord. The fact that you have a Justice Department that is unlikely to bring criminal charges, the fact that you would need Republicans in the U.S. House and Senate to work up an appetite to actually launch an oversight investigation into what happened here, putting aside what we've heard from Senator Wicker. Where does that leave us, Sam?
Well, my main question is, why didn't I get 11 exclamation points? What does one have to do to get 11? I only got 10. The second question I have is, what is going on right now? What do you imagine is going on right now, for instance, at the Department of Defense? When Pete Hegseth detailed the attack plans, call them whatever you want, clearly he wasn't going in improvisationally. They had developed those, likely, I imagine, in traditional secure forms with officials at DOD going by the books and making sure that the confidential plans stayed confidential. For them to then spill into a signal channel, and for that signal channel to then accidentally add a journalist to it, I imagine that inside the DOD there is incredible anger or frustration, whatever you want to call it, over how this could happen, because they probably followed the proper channels and then the person up top disregarded them entirely. And then secondarily, I am curious for where Waltz goes from here. I will say there is a lot of suspicion in MAGA circles that Waltz was or has been talking to Jeffrey Goldberg. For no other reason than Jeffrey Goldberg's phone number was added to the signal chat by Waltz. Now, Waltz says, I've talked to the guy, I've only met with him a couple times. I think Jeffrey Goldberg, to our own Tim Miller, said he only had a couple interactions with Mike Waltz. But that doesn't negate or change the fact that a lot of Trump allies are now suspicious of Waltz. And I think that explains why Waltz went on Fox last night and had this really convoluted explanation for how Goldberg got added to the thread. There's a lot of angst around him, and I am curious how he alleviates that.
Right. I mean, as you know, there was political reporting that said that the thing that Donald Trump is most upset about is the fact that Waltz has Jeffrey Goldberg's phone number in his phone in the first place, to speak to the point about your suspicion. Also telling that in that same Fox interview, you have Waltz saying, don't worry, I have Elon on it, trying to figure out how he got there in the first place. Again, not understanding that that addition is not really at the core of what went so wrong here. Harry, I do need to ask you, this suit that we've been talking about the records, it's being assigned to Judge Boasberg. What's the implication of that?
Well, look, he's all over this subject matter, and he's been very strong. Just today, Alicia, in a great opinion, the D.C. Circuit refused to give the administration emergency relief on the Aliens Enemy Act litigation. So I think he's just going to be strong on it, and you know, forthright and bold. By the way, on Walbs, it looks like he's one of the people who knowingly have set the signal chat to erase after a week or two. That's one of the things that are in the suit, but I think you can really be sure that he will follow through in a very earnest way. And I'm sorry about the 11 exclamation points. I'll just say that a man's reach should exceed his grasp, or what's a heaven for?
12 exclamation points for you both. Harry Littman, Sam Stein, thank you both so much for spending some time with us.
Thank you.
When we return, Donald Trump once again targeting voting rights. The new move he made that could prevent millions of legal